everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards, where the energy, as usual, is kicking it. And we just had the full moon plus lunar eclipse in Libra, which is all about reminding yourself to bring balance into your life. So it's a balance between what you give yourself and what you give to others. And just like last week's message, the message was, there are groups of people in this world who are overgivers and there's people who are overtakers. Usually I'm speaking to the overgivers here, and hopefully you're hearing that, yes, continue to do the loving work that you do. That's one of your superpowers, but make sure that you are also taking care of yourself in the process and getting ready for the new chapter that is definitely underway. I mean, we already have had the spring equinox. That's technically the Earth's new year. So we're what I feel like really officially starting 2024 now. Now we're in 2024 with this energy. And so it's all about shaking off the past and getting ready to embrace the future as it's coming. And the message from the team just takes us deeper into this. It's all about time. It's time to do a little shaman work. So if you haven't done any shamanic journey, guess what you get to do this week? Guess what is going to be most aligned for you? It's time to go in to the areas where we have left soul fragments behind. So let's talk about this again. I actually have a full episode on this on the Modern Mystic Soul podcast. I believe it's the very first episode of that podcast. So if you're a listener, you can go back to episode 1 and listen to a more in-depth conversation around it. But let's just kind of refresh. So the way my team has described this to me is they are like, imagine that your essence, your energy, your soul signature is like a beautiful mirror, an unblemished mirror. And that in that state where you are perfectly whole, you are fully connected to yourself, and all is well. Now, over time, that mirror can have experiences that create cracks or fissures. And, if you have enough of these little cracks, you might lose a shard. And that they would call that a soul fragment. So a shard gets left behind. And this can happen in any lifetime you've had. In fact, maybe one of the reasons that you are here this lifetime is simply to retrieve a part of your soul that was left behind in another lifetime. So just to get all the pieces, because in order to pass into higher levels of frequency, you're going to need all of your soul there. We don't want to leave a piece of it behind. And so shamanic journey would include soul retrieval work, where you go and you find where these missing pieces are and you bring them back and reincorporate them with the rest of you. Now, they can be in a lot of places, and they can break off for a lot of reasons. Most people think about trauma, and that is a very common reason for a soul shard to break. But one of the ones I found most interesting is that a soul shard can break off because you are really attached to something or really happy with something. It's a good memory. And so it's almost like you willingly break a piece just to keep this energy going. And I'll give you a personal example. I think I've done this before, but I'll say it again, because when I found it, it was really revealing. I lived in New York for 11 years. That's where I met my husband. We lived in Brooklyn, and I used to absolutely love running through Prospect Park. I would go there several times a week and run around that park. And I did my first 10-mile run on that in that park. And that was a great moment for me. It was like a moment of achievement. I felt so proud of myself for having trained myself to that point. And when we moved back to Washington State, there was a part of me that was deeply sad. Drama. There was a part of me that was deeply sad to go. And I feel like I intentionally left a part of myself running through that park. It was so interesting because I could close my eyes and see things so clearly. Like I could see the weather, I could see the trees, I could picture every part of the park as I was running. And when I did a soul retrieval session, I realized I can't tell if that's amorous or fighting words. I'm thinking it's amorous is what we're hearing back there. Anyway, I had to go get that part. And it was really hard to do it because there was so much joy and happiness there. But an incomplete soul is an incomplete soul. You need to have all your pieces. This is amorous for sure. There's two of them giving each other loves right now. Anyhow, that was really hard to call that piece back. But ultimately it is for my highest good. And it does feel better. Now, interestingly enough, I can't picture it as intensely as I used to be able to picture it in the past. I've lost some of that. And that is sort of, I don't know if you guys can hear all that. Mommy's working. Stop. Anyway, so the sacrifice is you'd have to let that go. Now, that's when you have a positive soul fragment. And it could be something like the day that your child was born, or a wedding day, or just the best day of your life, like the happiest day that you have. There's a good chance that you could have left a fragment there. We don't always, but if the feeling is intense enough and you have a really intense memory of it, there's a good chance there's a part of you in that. Most likely, there are some fragments of parts of you that you have rejected. These are parts that you're just like, I learned early on that this was not acceptable, it wasn't appreciated, and I had to fragment for my own safety or my own well-being, or to get my needs met, or for a number of reasons. And a lot of those soul fragments hang out in sort of the shadow area. So it's the parts of ourself that we are still currently rejecting, whether it's I'm not allowed to ask for things because I get told I'm selfish if I ask for my needs to be met. So having those specific needs, or just having needs in general, you fragment that. I'm not allowed to have needs. I'm not allowed to be angry, right? That's bad. Can't be angry. Reject that. I'm not allowed to cry. Crying's weak, right? Whatever it is, there's a good chance that if there's a part of yourself you reject, or even an experience you've had in the past, something you did, something you said that just deeply felt wrong, and you reject that part, then that can get relegated into our shadow self. And it's still not fully integrated into ourself. And we're moving into such an important period of energy. If you've listened to the current episodes of the Modern Mystic Soul podcast, you know what I'm talking about. There's huge energy, possibly even an ascension gateway opening up very soon, which explains why the messages are all about cleanup work and get used to it, like something else is in control, like last week, right? Last week was all about universe is driving, surrender and pray more. This week it's all about go clean up those soul shards and figure out what parts of yourself you are not accepting and integrate them. So not only are we to look for them and find them, but we're also to integrate them, which means I accept it and I love it. It's easier to do it with the parts of you that you've put somewhere because you enjoy. It's like, that's so easy to accept and love, right? Like, oh, look at me having a happy moment. I totally enjoy it. Now you might have to deal with the fear of like, what if I let this go? Do I lose that joy? And I would say, no, you don't. But you're going to have to go through that to see for yourself that you don't. We're just at this peak point where it's massive energy cleanup, and these are the final pieces. You want all of those shards reintegrated back into the mirror, because that's what's going to allow us to pass through an ascension gateway fully. If we have pieces left, then we're going to stay to go get them. And I know a lot of you are ready to go. I know a lot of you are like, I did Earth. Like, I'm good. I got the t-shirt. I'm ready to ready to move on. So if that's true, just like if we were moving houses, we do a thorough check and make sure we have all of our stuff so that we can go into the next space. And it's time to do that on an energetic level. So again, you can either find someone who does shamanic journeying. I know you could probably find it a video here on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. There are meditations out there. There's lots of free tools that you can find to help you do it. But the basics are being willing to go and look for where you are rejecting yourself or what you're holding on to desperately, whether it's a good feeling memory, a moment in time, right? This thing that you're desperately trying to hold. It's what we're holding and what we're resisting that's going to show us where things are not integrated yet. And the idea when we find them is to, if it's something you're rejecting, is to embrace it, right? So I have had a lot of anger in my life. My liver likes to let me know that that's been happening. And I have learned to embrace and even appreciate that part of myself, because I learned by going in there and talking to that part that part was simply letting me know, hey, things are not okay as they are with whatever the situation was. That was an indicator that, hey, this is not okay. And when I look at where I held anger, I was like, you're right, that wasn't okay. And that part just wanted it corrected. And so I've learned to appreciate what it means when anger comes up and not take it as such a character flaw like I used to in the past. So, whatever it is that you're resisting looking at or accepting about yourself, that's actually where beautiful treasures and information lie. And that part of yourself is just as worthy as the rest of you and wants to be welcomed home with your soul signature so that you can feel more at home and ready to go when it's time to move. And with that, let's look at this week's karma card. If you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how they work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition and just feel, what do you need right now? Are you looking for action related guidance? Are you looking at outcomes? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're choosing, the timing for this reading is March 27th through April 3rd. And the flavor of this reading, okay, we got the South Node again, just like last week. Fun. Okay, not necessarily my favorite, but it is about looking into the past, which is very much in alignment with the message we're getting from the team. In the sign of Sagittarius, which is all about mental expansion, you are going to learn something through this experience. In the 5th house, which is the fun house, interestingly enough. So there is something fun or enjoyable about this process. It might not seem like it's fun at first, especially when you have to go deal with the parts of yourself you've rejected. But this also deals with like innocence. It represents children as well. And so I feel like the inner child holds the key, right? So when we reject parts of ourselves, the child acts like the wounded child archetype. It's hurt, it's rejected, it feels abandoned, and it goes through those symptoms. But when we actually start integrating what that inner child is holding on to, the shards it's holding until we accept them again, it becomes the magical child, fully ready to experience its full power and magic and connection to source. All right, for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to remember your highest ideals with the trust of a child. All right, remember what this is for. Trust this process, right? Going in and retrieving, doing soul retrieval work and healing and accepting the parts of ourselves we rejected it's a sacred job. And it's connected to ultimately your ascension, ultimately you being able to get out of this cycle of of karma and move on to the next level, the highest levels, right? And children hold that unwavering trust. When a child decides to trust, they trust with all their heart. And that's what we're being asked to do now. Mental action at this time: reconsider the rules of fun, romance, and making art. I would say, I feel like reconsider the rules of fun, romance, and making art. The first thing I hear is there are no rules. There's no right way to do this. There's no right way to have fun. There's no right way to make art. There's no right way to be in romance. It's about you, again, using that inner compass and aligning to what feels right for you. So again, there are processes out there that you can follow, but simply the willingness to go inside and meet these parts of yourself and accept them. However you want to get to that, go for it. If you want to gamify it, go for it. If you want to imagine that you're going on a date with yourself and meeting yourself and learning all about yourself, go for it. Hey everyone, editor Therese here, and I have some sad news. Apparently, while I was recording the karma cards yesterday, my mic died. There's a little light there. It went out and I didn't even know. There was no notification or anything. So I just kept going. I read all the cards and the video was pure silence. So not to despair, I am here for you and I'm here to finish the job. So I'm going to read for you the rest of the karma cards, but that's why the costume change and sudden break, because technical difficulties. And that's one bummer thing about having technology, is that it sometimes overcomplicates a situation where it's supposed to make it better. All right, so let's go back to what we were talking about in terms of the mental action at this time. Is there are no rules when it comes to how to collect these soul fragments and how to integrate parts of yourself that you've rejected. Enjoy the process, make it up, just get in there and figure out, like, what part of myself am I rejecting? Where am I holding on to something and therefore may have lost a part of myself, and how do I integrate it back? Physical action at this time: now is not the time to get out into the world and do it dramatically. So this is an inside job, and it's really only something that you can do for yourself. I mean, there's a lot of vulnerability in the task that they're asking us to do, and it might even be hard to include someone else unless you're working with a therapist or maybe someone who does shamanic work. It might be very personal work, and that's fine. This is something that, again, you might not necessarily feel the immediate results of doing the work and get that sort of instant gratification of, aha, I've got this, but you will make progress whether you feel it or not. And so it's just a matter of willingness to go in and do that work. And again, it's done on a private level and maybe a little bit at a time. Now let's look at outcomes for the South Node in Sagittarius in the 5th house or the fun house. Spiritual outcome at this time: there will not be insights to understand the power of love. So again, what I said before was, it's not going to be that quick, instant gratification, right? The aha, the oh my gosh. You might even feel like, I'm not sure I did the work. And yet we're back here in this place of just trust. Just, trust the universe, trust the guidance that you're getting. It might take a minute to unpack or to feel it. This is not going to be dramatic work where the results are super obvious. This is subtle work where the results will show themselves to you over time. Mental outcome at this time: anxiety about the wisdom of investments, gambles, and other games. So doing this work still feels risky. It feels risky to go meet the parts of yourself that you reject, or to retrieve parts of yourself from moments that you really are attached to, or go back into places where, traumatic memories where another piece may be. Can feel like a big risk. And anytime you are taking a risk, your heart is open. We feel vulnerable. And that can naturally cause anxiety. I mean, some people work really hard to not feel vulnerable. However, there is a bigger task at hand here, which is preparing ourselves to make a huge evolutionary leap, and we want all of ourselves to come with us. So it's sort of a time for us to understand that we might feel anxious and choose to do it anyway. It's like feel the fear and do it anyway, is what I'm getting. Physical outcome at this time: trouble resulting from the understanding of your creations. Yeah, it's going to feel a little messy going through this and bringing it up. It's not some, it's like, oh God, what can I compare it to? It's like going to the dentist or something for, think about something that you're doing it, you're doing it for your good. You just don't enjoy it. That's kind of what I'm getting for this. So what you can do before you go into this work is surround yourself with a sense of protection. You can use a ball of white light around you, like using the white pyramid of light, a golden egg of light. You can call in your spirit team. You can call in any other support that you want, like animal guides or things like that, something that would make you feel very safe and protected while you go in. And the reason why is, again, because it's vulnerable work. It's going into subjects or areas where you've been trying to avoid things, and you don't have to go alone, and you don't have to feel like I have to face this by myself or raw. You can put a lot of spiritual energy around you and remind yourself that this is one of those things where it's for your highest good. So even though it doesn't feel great, it does lead to great things. It's just we're not feeling that immediately. Just like when you go to the dentist to get a tooth fixed or a root canal or something, you're going to go there. You're going to have anxiety about doing it because no one really enjoys that too. They're going to do the work, and that's going to probably feel worse, even though psychologically, I know this is better for me. It feels worse. My face is puffy. I'm numbed up. I feel more sensitive right now. But in the end, this is actually helping me. So you're psychologically prepared to do it. And it's that kind of psychological preparation we're going to need to take with us. If we're going through this time period right now where we're going to be nudged to clean things up anyway, and we're not psychologically prepared that this is for our best good, we might actually misread the situation as quite troublesome or worse. And they want you to know that, one, when you go into it willingly, it's a lot easier. Two, even if it's happening to you and you're not willingly participating, it's actually for your highest good, even though it doesn't feel like it. Results are pending, right? Like the outcome is pending, but the work is right. So if we can just have that same mentality we would take when we're going to a doctor's office or a dentist, we would be psychologically prepared in the same way, and that will ease the process. So with that, thank you so much for watching this week's Karma Cards. Sorry for the whole switch up, but it was great to hang out with you again. And I look forward to seeing you in the next Karma Cards video. Sending you so much love. Mwah.